Ailments of the Heart and Their Healing by Ibn Taymiyyah. Translation by Muhammad Al-Amrani. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. All praise is due to God. We seek His help and forgiveness, and we seek refuge in God from the evil of our souls and from the wickedness of our deeds. Whomsoever God guides, none can lead astray, and whomsoever He lets go astray, none can guide. And I bear witness that there is no deity save God, alone without partner, and I bear witness that Muhammad is His servant and messenger. May God's blessings and peace be upon him, his family, and his companions, abundantly and perpetually. Chapter concerning the ailment of hearts and their healing. God Most High has spoken about the hypocrites, saying, "In their hearts is a disease, and so God increased their disease." And He said, that He may make what Satan casts a trial for those in whose hearts is a disease and whose hearts are hardened. And He said, if the hypocrites and those in whose hearts is a disease and the agitators in the city do not desist, we shall surely incite thee against them, then they will not be able to dwell near thee therein, save for a little while. And He said, so that those who have been given the book and the believers may not doubt, and that those in whose hearts is a disease and the disbelievers may say, what did God intend by this parable? And He said, there has come to you an admonition from your sustainer, and a healing for what is in the breasts, and a guidance and a mercy for the believers. And He said, and we send down from the Quran that which is a healing and a mercy for the believers, while it increases the wrongdoers in nothing but loss. And He said, and He may heal the hearts of a believing people and remove the rage from their hearts. As for the disease of the body, it is the opposite of health and soundness. It is a corruption that afflicts its faculties, by which its perception and natural motion are impaired. Its perception may be lost entirely, as in blindness and deafness, or it may perceive things contrary to their reality, such as when the sweet is tasted as bitter, or when illusions are seen that have no existence outside the mind. And as for the corruption of natural motion, it is exemplified by the weakening of the digestive faculty, or when one comes to detest nourishing food and craves that which harms him. Pain arises in the body accordingly, either due to a disordered quantity or quality, the first being either a deficiency of material, requiring nourishment, or an excess, requiring purging, and the second being an overabundance of heat or cold beyond the moderation of balance, and thus it is treated. Likewise, the disease of the heart is a kind of corruption that afflicts its perception and its will. Its perception becomes tarnished by the doubts that beset it, so that it fails to see the truth or perceives it otherwise than it truly is. And its will becomes disordered to the point that it comes to detest what is beneficial and to love what is harmful. For this reason the disease is sometimes interpreted as doubt and suspicion, as Mujahid and Qatada interpreted His saying, in their hearts is a disease, Surah Al-Baqarah 2:10, meaning doubt. And at other times it is interpreted as the lust for fornication, as in His saying, so that he in whose heart is a disease may yearn towards them. Surah Al-Ahzab 33:32, that is, lust. And for this reason, Al-Qara'aiti authored a book entitled The Ailment of Hearts, meaning their sickness through lust. The one who is ailing is affected by what does not affect the healthy, and is harmed by the slightest heat, cold, effort, or other matters he cannot endure, due to the weakness born of illness. In general, disease weakens the afflicted and renders his strength insufficient to bear what the healthy can bear. Health is preserved by what resembles it and destroyed by its opposite. Disease is strengthened by that which resembles its cause and is removed by its opposite. When a person afflicted with disease encounters that which resembles the cause of his illness, his condition worsens and his strength diminishes, perhaps even bringing him to ruin. But when he encounters that which strengthens his vital force and repels the disease, the opposite occurs. And the disease of the heart is a pain felt within it, such as the rage one feels against an enemy who has overpowered him, for that indeed causes suffering to the heart. God Most High said, and He may heal the hearts of a believing people and remove the rage from their hearts. Their healing lies in the removal of that pain from their hearts. It is said, so-and-so has satisfied his rage, and in Qisas, the retribution for murder, the avengers of the slain find healing, and so on. This is a healing from grief, anger, and sorrow, all of which are pains that afflict the soul. Likewise, doubt and ignorance bring pain to the heart. The prophet said, "Why did they not ask when they did not know? For indeed the cure for ignorance is to ask." The one who is in doubt concerning a matter feels pain in his heart until knowledge and certainty are attained. And it is said of one who answers with clarity and truth, "He has healed me with his reply." Disease is not death. The heart may die through absolute ignorance, and it may merely fall ill through partial ignorance. Thus, the heart has death, illness, life, and healing, and its life, death, illness, and healing are greater in consequence than those of the body. When the heart is diseased and it encounters a doubt or a lust, its sickness is intensified. But when wisdom and admonition reach it, they become a means for its rectification and healing. God Most High said, "That he may make what Satan casts a trial for those in whose hearts is a disease. For such things cause doubts to take root in their hearts, and as for those whose hearts are hardened, it is due to their dryness and rigidity. Thus, the former are weak of heart due to illness, so what the devil casts becomes a trial for them, and the latter are hard of heart, unyielding to faith, so it too becomes a trial for them." He said, "If the hypocrites and those in whose hearts is a disease and the agitators in the city do not desist," just as he said, so that those in whose hearts is a disease may say, "Their hearts have not died, as have the hearts of disbelievers and hypocrites, nor are they pure and sound like those of the righteous believers. Rather, their hearts are afflicted with the diseases of doubts and desires, and likewise, so that he in whose heart is a disease may yearn towards them. This is the disease of lust. A sound heart, when confronted by a woman, turns away from her, whereas a heart diseased with lust, due to its weakness, inclines toward what presents itself, in proportion to the strength or weakness of the illness. So, when women speak in a soft and alluring manner, the one whose heart is diseased becomes desirous. The Quran is a healing for what is in the breasts. For those whose hearts are afflicted with the diseases of doubt and desire, it contains clear proofs that distinguish truth from falsehood, thus removing the diseases of doubt that corrupt knowledge, perception, and understanding, so that they perceive things as they truly are. And it contains wisdom and beautiful admonition through encouragement and warning, and through stories full of lessons which bring about the rectification of the heart. Thus the heart comes to desire that which benefits it and to turn away from that which harms it. The heart comes to love guidance and detest misguidance, whereas before it had desired misguidance and loathed guidance. The Quran removes the diseases that give rise to corrupt desires so that the heart is rectified, its will is purified, and it returns to the innate disposition upon which it was created, just as the body returns to its natural state. And the heart is nourished by faith and the Quran in a way that purifies and strengthens it, just as the body is nourished by food that fosters its growth and sustains it. For the purification, zakah, of the heart is like the growth, numu, of the body. And zakah in the language of the Arabs means increase and growth in goodness. They say zakah al-shay, a thing has been purified, meaning it has grown in righteousness. Thus the heart is in need of being nurtured so that it may grow and increase until it becomes complete and sound, just as the body requires nourishment conducive to its well-being. Yet this alone is not sufficient. One must also prevent what harms it. The body does not grow save by receiving what benefits it and being protected from what harms it. Likewise, the heart cannot grow, nor can its state be perfected except by acquiring what benefits it and being shielded from what harms it. This is also the case with crops. They do not flourish except through the same dual process. And as for sadaqah, charity, it extinguishes sin just as water extinguishes fire. By it, the heart is purified and elevated. Its effect upon the heart is more than mere cleansing from sin. It bestows upon it an added grace. God, exalted is He, says, Take from their wealth a charity by which you may purify them and cause them to grow thereby. Likewise, the abandonment of indecency purifies the heart, and likewise the avoidance of sins, for they are akin to corrupt substances within the body, or like weeds in a field. When the body expels these foul humours like excessive blood, it allows the natural strength to be freed and to find rest, and thus the body grows. So too, when the heart repents from sin, it is as though those corruptions have been expelled, the heart having blended righteous deeds with evil ones. Repentance purges the heart's power and will toward righteous action, and the heart is relieved of the corrupt afflictions that once dwelled therein. The purification, zakah, of the heart lies in its growth and perfection. God, sublime is he, says, "And were it not for the bounty of God upon you and his mercy, not one of you would ever have been purified." And he says, "And if it is said to you, 'Go back,' then go back. It is purer for you." And he says, "Tell the believing men to lower their gaze and guard their private parts. That is purer for them." Surely God is well aware of what they do. And he says, "Truly he has succeeded who purifies himself and remembers the name of his sustainer and prays." And he says, "Truly he has succeeded who purifies it, the soul, and he has failed who corrupts it." And he says, "And what will make you know? Perhaps he might be purified." And he says, "So say, would you like to be purified? And I will guide you to your sustainer, so you will fear him." So purification, though its essence is growth, blessing, and increase in goodness, is only fully realized through the removal of evil. Thus purification, tazkiyah, combines both the increase of good and the elimination of harm. And he says, "And woe to those who ascribe divinity to aught beside God, those who do not give the zakah," meaning the zakah of tawhid and faith by which the heart is purified. For it entails the negation of the divinity of all save the True One from the heart, and the affirmation of the divinity of the True One within the heart. This is the essence of La ilaha illa God. There is no God but God. It is the foundation by which hearts are purified. Purification, tazkiyah, is to render something pure, either in its reality or in the belief of others. As one says, "Adaltuhu," I declared him just, meaning he is just either in himself or in people's eyes. God, exalted is he, says, "So do not claim purity for yourselves." That is, do not assert your own purity. This is distinct from his saying, "Truly, he has succeeded who purifies it." Hence, he said, he knows best who is truly God-conscious. The name of Zainab once was Bara, the pious, and it was said that she thereby claimed purity for herself. So the messenger of God changed her name to Zainab. As for his saying, "Have you not seen those who claim purity for themselves? Rather, it is God who purifies whom he wills." That is, he makes a person pure and attests to his purity, just as one who testifies to the integrity of witnesses affirms their justice. And adl, justice, is balance and moderation is the soundness of the heart, just as injustice is its corruption. Hence all sins are a form of wrongdoing against one's own self. Injustice is the opposite of justice. It is to not be just with one's own self, but rather to wrong it. The soundness of the heart lies in justice. Its corruption lies in injustice. When a servant wrongs his own soul, he is both the oppressor and the oppressed. And when he is just, he is both the just one and the one upon whom justice is enacted. From him deeds proceed, and to him returns the fruit of those deeds, whether good or evil. God, exalted is he, says, "For it is what it has earned, and against it is what it has earned." Deeds have an effect upon the heart, of benefit or harm, of soundness or corruption, before their outward consequences appear. Its soundness is its justice, its corruption, its injustice. God says, "Whoever does righteousness, it is for the benefit of his own soul, and whoever does evil, it is against it." And he says, "If you do good for your own selves, and if you do evil, it is for your own selves." One of the pious predecessors said, "Indeed, righteousness brings light to the heart, strength to the body, brightness to the face, abundance in provision, and love in the hearts of people. And sin brings darkness to the heart, blackness to the face, weakness to the body, scarcity in provision, and hatred in the hearts of creation." God says every person is held in pledge for what it has earned. And he says every soul is held in pledge for what it has earned. And he says, and warn with it, lest a soul be seized for what it has earned, having no protector besides God, nor any intercessor. And though it offer every compensation, it will not be accepted. Such are those who are seized for what they have earned. Tubsul, that is, to be held in pledge, imprisoned and restrained. Just as the body, when it recovers from illness, is said to have regained its balance, illness itself being the imbalance of temperament, so too is the heart. Absolute balance, free of all impurities, is not within human reach, yet what is most balanced is sought after. Thus, the health and soundness of the heart lie in justice. Its illness lies in deviation, wrongdoing, and imbalance. Perfect justice in all things is beyond reach, whether in knowledge or in action, yet one must strive for what is most just. Hence it is said, this is more just, amthal, and the path of the early righteous generations is called at-tariqa al-muthla, the most exemplary way. God says, and you will never be able to be perfectly just between women, even if you strive to do so. And he says, and give full measure and weight with justice. We do not burden a soul beyond its capacity. God, exalted is he, sent the messengers and revealed the scriptures so that mankind might uphold justice. The greatest justice is to worship God alone, without any partner, followed by justice toward others in their rights, and justice toward oneself. Injustice is of three kinds, all of which are diseases of the heart, while justice is its health and soundness. Ahmad ibn Hanbal once said to a man, if you were sound, you would not fear anyone. Meaning, your fear of created beings is due to a sickness within you, like the sickness of associating partners with God, or the sickness of sin. The root of the heart's soundness is its life and its illumination. God says, is he who was dead, and we gave him life, and made for him a light by which to walk among people, like one who is in darkness, never to emerge from it? Hence God often mentions the life and light of hearts and their death and darkness, as in his saying, so that he may warn whoever is alive, and so that the word may be fulfilled against the disbelievers, and his saying, O you who believe, respond to God and to the messenger when he calls you to that which gives you life, and know that God comes between a man and his heart, and that to him you shall be gathered. And he says, he brings forth the living from the dead, and brings forth the dead from the living. And among its kinds is that it brings forth the believer from the disbeliever, and the disbeliever from the believer. And in the sound hadith, the likeness of a house wherein God is remembered, and a house wherein he is not remembered, is like that of the living and the dead. And also in the sound narration, make part of your prayers in your homes, and do not make them graves. And God, exalted be he, has said, but those who deny our signs are deaf and dumb in utter darkness. Al-An'am 6:39, and he, most glorious, revealed the verse of light and the verse of darkness, saying, God is the light of the heavens and the earth. The parable of his light is as if there were a niche, and within it a lamp. The lamp is enclosed in glass, the glass as it were a brilliant star, lit from a blessed tree, an olive tree, neither of the east nor of the west, whose oil would almost glow forth of itself, though no fire touched it. Light upon light. Al-Nur 24:35. This is the parable of the light of faith in the hearts of the believers. Then he said, as for those who deny the truth, their deeds are like a mirage in a desert. The thirsty one thinks it water, but when he comes to it, he finds it to be nothing. And he finds God with him, who then settles his account. And God is swift in reckoning, or like layers of darkness in a vast deep sea, overwhelmed by waves, topped by clouds. Darkness upon darkness, if he stretches out his hand, he can hardly see it. And for whomever God has not appointed a light, for him there is no light. Al-Nur 24:39-40. The first is a parable for corrupt beliefs and the deeds that follow them. Their doer assumes them to be of benefit, but when he comes upon them he finds them of no avail, and God will repay him in full for such deeds. The second is a parable for simplistic ignorance and absence of faith and knowledge, for its bearer dwells in darkness one upon another, unable to perceive anything. For sight is only by the light of faith and knowledge. God, exalted be he, said, verily those who are conscious of God, when a visitation from Satan touches them, they remember God, and then they see clearly. Al-Araf 7, 201. And he said, and she certainly desired him, and he would have inclined to her had he not seen a proof from his sustainer. Yusuf 12:24. This is the proof of faith that settled in his heart, whereby God turned him away from what he had intended. Thus, a full reward was written for him, and no sin recorded, because he did good and refrained from evil. And he said, This is a book which we have revealed to you, that you may bring mankind out of darkness into light. Ibrahim 14:1. And he said, God is the protector of those who believe. He brings them out of darkness into light. And those who disbelieve, their allies are the false deities. They bring them out of light into darkness. Al-Baqarah 2, 257. And he said, O you who believe, be conscious of God and believe in his messenger. He will grant you a double portion of his mercy and will appoint for you a light by which you shall walk. Al-Hadid 57:28. And thus God struck two parables for faith, one with water by which life comes, and with it that which accompanies it of froth, and another with fire, by which light comes, and with it that which is kindled upon, producing scum. Likewise God set forth two parables for hypocrisy. He said, He sends down water from the sky, and the valleys flow according to their measure, and the torrent carries swelling foam. And from what they heat in the fire, seeking to make ornaments or utensils, there arises a scum like unto it. Thus does God set forth the parable of truth and falsehood. As for the scum, it passes away as dross, but that which benefits mankind remains in the earth. Thus does God set forth parables. Al-Ra'd 13:17. And he said concerning the hypocrites, their likeness is that of one who kindled a fire. But when it illuminated all around him, God took away their light and left them in darkness, unable to see. Deaf, dumb, and blind they will not return. Or like a rainstorm from the sky, in which is darkness, thunder, and lightning. They thrust their fingers into their ears against the thunderclaps, fearing death, yet God encompasses the disbelievers. The lightning almost snatches away their sight. Whenever it flashes for them, they walk in it, and when darkness falls upon them, they stand still. And had God willed, he could have taken away their hearing and their sight, for indeed God is over all things powerful. Al-Baqarah 2:17-20. Thus he gave them a parable like that of one who kindled a fire. Whenever it gave light, God extinguished it. And the watery parable, like water descending from the sky, with darkness, thunder, and lightning. The elaboration of these parables belongs to another place. The intent here is to mention the life of the hearts and their illumination, and in the well-known supplication, make the Quran the springtime of our hearts and the light of our chests. And springtime is the rain that descends from the sky and brings forth vegetation. The Prophet said, Indeed, from that which the springtime brings forth is what kills by overfilling or nearly does. And the season in which the first rain descends is called spring by the Arabs, because of the rain that causes the spring to blossom therein. Others call spring the season that follows winter, for in it the flowers that become fruit emerge, and the leaves grow upon the trees. And the living, illuminated heart, because of the light within it, hears, sees, and understands, whereas the dead heart neither hears nor sees. God said, The likeness of those who disbelieve is like the one who shouts to that which hears nothing, but calls and cries, deaf, dumb, and blind, they do not understand. Al-Baqarah 2, 171. And he said, And among them are those who listen to you, but can you make the deaf hear, even though they do not understand? And among them are those who look at you, but can you guide the blind, even though they do not see? Yunus 10:42-43. And he said, And among them are those who listen to you, but we have set veils upon their hearts lest they understand it, and deafness in their ears. Even if they see every sign, they will not believe in it, until when they come to you to argue with you, those who disbelieve will say, This is nothing but tales of the ancients. Al-An'am 6:25. Thus he informed that they comprehend not with their hearts, nor hear with their ears, nor believe in what they see of the signs, just as he informed of them when they said, Our hearts are veiled against that to which you call us, and in our ears is deafness, and between us and you is a barrier. Fusilat 41:5. So he mentioned the barriers upon the hearts, and upon the hearing and the sight. Their bodies are alive, they hear sounds and see forms, but the life of the body without the life of the heart is like the life of cattle. They have ears and eyes, they eat, drink, and mate. And hence God said, "The likeness of those who disbelieve is like the one who shouts to that which hears nothing but calls and cries." Al-Baqarah 2:171. He likened them to sheep to whom a shepherd calls, but they hear nothing except a voice. As he said elsewhere, "Do you think that most of them hear or understand? They are but like cattle. Nay, they are even more astray in their path." Al-Furqan 25:44. And he said, "Indeed, we have destined for hell many of the jinn and mankind. They have hearts with which they do not understand, eyes with which they do not see, and ears with which they do not hear. They are like cattle, nay, they are even more astray." Al-Araf 7:179. And some among the commentators say regarding these verses and their like, such as his saying, "When harm touches man, he calls upon us lying on his side, or sitting, or standing, but when we remove his harm, he passes on as if he had never called us for harm that touched him." Yunus 10:12. And other such verses wherein God mentions the flaws of man and censures them, they say, "This verse pertains to the disbelievers, and the man here means the disbeliever." Thus, the one who hears this may assume that those who display Islam have no share in this blame and warning. Rather, his mind goes to those who openly practice shirk among the Arabs, or to those known to him from the disbelievers such as the Jews, Christians, idolaters of Turk and India, and so on. Hence, he derives no benefit from these verses which God revealed for the guidance of his servants. One must therefore say, firstly, among those who display Islam are both believers and hypocrites are many in every age, and the hypocrites are in the lowest depths of the fire. And secondly, one must say, a human may possess a portion of hypocrisy and disbelief, even if he also has faith. As the Prophet said in the well-agreed-upon hadith, "There are 4 traits. Whoever possesses them is a pure hypocrite, and whoever has one of them has a trait of hypocrisy until he gives it up. When he speaks, he lies. When he is entrusted, he betrays. When he makes a promise, he breaks it. And when he argues, he transgresses." And thus it has been conveyed that whoever possesses one of these traits indeed possesses a trait of hypocrisy. And it is affirmed in the sound narration that the Prophet said to Abu Dhar, may God be pleased with him, "You are a man who still has traces of ignorance within you." And Abu Dhar, God be pleased with him, was among the most truthful of people in faith. And in the sound hadith, the Prophet said, 4 things remain in my nation from the affairs of the age of ignorance, boasting about ancestry, disparaging lineages, wailing over the dead and seeking rain through the stars. And in another sound narration, "You shall surely follow the ways of those who came before you, handspan by handspan, arm's length by arm's length, so much so that if they were to enter the hole of a lizard, you would follow them." They asked, "The Jews and the Christians?" He replied, "Who else?" And again he said in a sound hadith, "You will certainly adopt the ways of the nations before you, step by step, cubit by cubit." They said, "The Persians and the Romans?" He said, "Who else is there among mankind but them?" And Ibn Abi Mulaika said, "I met 30 of the companions of Muhammad. All of them feared hypocrisy for themselves." And it was narrated from Ali or from Hudayfa, may God be pleased with them both, that he said, "The hearts are 4, a pure heart within which is a shining lamp, that is the heart of the believer, a sealed heart, that is the heart of the disbeliever, a heart that is inverted, that is the heart of the hypocrite, and a heart within which are 2 inclinations, one drawing it toward faith and the other toward hypocrisy. Such are the people who have mingled a righteous deed with another that is evil." If this is known, then it becomes evident that every servant of God benefits from what he has revealed concerning the praise of the branches of faith and the condemnation of the branches of disbelief. And this is like what some say regarding his words, "Guide us upon the straight path." Al-Fatiha 1:6. They say, the believer has already been guided to the straight path, so what benefit is there in asking for guidance again? Some respond, the intent is, keep us firm upon the path, as the Arabs say to one who is asleep, sleep until I come to you. Others say, bind our hearts to the path, thus omitting the implied. And yet others say, increase us in guidance. But they raise such questions only due to their lack of comprehension of the reality of the straight path which the servant is asking to be guided upon, for what is truly meant is acting upon what God has commanded and refraining from what he has prohibited in all matters. And even if a person acknowledges that Muhammad is God's messenger, and that the Quran is true in general terms, still, most of what he needs in knowledge, concerning what benefits or harms him, what is commanded and what is forbidden, in detailed matters and particulars, he does not know. And what he does know, much of it he does not implement. And even if we suppose that every command and prohibition in the Quran and Sunnah has reached him, then still the Quran and the Sunnah only contain general principles and universal rulings. It is not possible for them to specify what pertains to every individual. Thus, a person is commanded in such cases to seek guidance upon the straight path, and guidance to the straight path comprises all of this. It includes the detailed knowledge of what the messenger brought, and the understanding of what enters into his general commands, and the inspiration to act upon that knowledge, for mere knowledge of the truth does not bring guidance unless it is acted upon. Thus God said to his prophet after the Treaty of Al-Hudaybiyah, "Verily, we have granted you a manifest victory, that God may forgive you your past and future sins, complete his favour upon you, and guide you upon a straight path." Al-Fath 48:1-2. And he said of Moses and Aaron, "And we gave them the clear book, and we guided them upon the straight path." Al-Safat 37, 117-118. And the Muslims have differed with one another concerning many of the matters of knowledge, belief, and practice, even though they all agree that Muhammad is true and the Quran is true. Had each of them truly attained guidance to the straight path in what they disputed, they would not have differed. Then, as for those who have known what God has commanded, most of them disobey him and do not tread his path. Had they been guided upon the straight path in those actions, they would have done what they were commanded and refrained from what they were forbidden. And those whom God guided from this nation, until they became among the friends of God the righteous, one of the greatest reasons for that was their constant supplication to God, with this very prayer in every salah, along with their knowledge of how much they needed and depended on God to guide them to the straight path. By the continuity of this prayer and their state of need, they became among the pious friends of God. Sal ibn Abdallah al-Tustari said, "There is no path between the servant and his sustainer closer than that of need. And even if someone attained guidance in the past, he still needs guidance in the future. This is the reality of those who say, 'Keep us firm,' or 'Guide us continually to remain upon the path.' And those who say, 'Increase us in guidance,' this includes what has already occurred, for all of it is guidance from God in the future upon the straight path. For acting in the future upon knowledge has not yet occurred, and one is not truly guided until he acts upon his knowledge. And perhaps he will not receive knowledge in the future, or it may depart from his heart, and even if it remains, he may not act upon it. Thus all people are in absolute need of this prayer. For this reason, God made it obligatory upon them in every salah. There is nothing they are more in need of invoking than this. And when guidance to the straight path is attained, then victory, provision, and all other forms of happiness sought by the soul follow, and God knows best. And know that the life of the heart and that of other things is not merely sensation and voluntary movement, nor merely knowledge and power, as some thinkers imagined, like Abu al-Hussein al-Basri. They said, life is the capacity to know and to act. But in truth, life is an attribute that subsists in the living, and it is a condition for knowledge, will, and power over voluntary actions. It is also inseparable from them. For every living being possesses awareness, will, and voluntary action through power, and anything that has knowledge, will, and voluntary action is living. And modesty, haya, is derived from life, haya. For a living heart is sound and alive, and within it is modesty that prevents it from shameful deeds. For it is the life of the heart that wards off that which corrupts it. Hence the prophet said, "Modesty is part of faith." And he also said, "Modesty and restraint are two branches of faith, and foulness and excessive speech are two branches of hypocrisy." For the one who is alive repels harm that befalls him, unlike the one who is dead, in whom there is no life. Such a person is called shameless, and shamelessness is hardness. It is dryness, the opposite of the moisture of life. So when one is shameless, dry, and hard of face, then in his heart there is no life that would cause modesty and deter him from shameful acts, just as parched soil does not respond to the footsteps of those who walk upon it, unlike lush green earth. Therefore the modest person is visibly affected by acts of indecency, and he possesses a will that deters him from them, unlike the shameless one who has no modesty and no faith to restrain him. So, when the heart is alive, even if the body perishes and the soul departs from it, the death of the self is only the separation from the body. It does not mean that the soul itself has died in the sense of its life being extinguished. Hence God said, "Do not say of those who are slain in the path of God, they are dead. Rather they are alive." Al-Baqarah 2, 154. And he said, "Do not think of those who are killed in the path of God as dead, rather they are alive." Al-Imran 3, 169. Even though they are included in his saying, "Every soul shall taste death." Al-Imran 3, 185. And his saying, "Indeed you shall die, and they too shall die." Al-Zumar 39:30. And his saying, "It is he who gave you life, then causes you to die, and then will bring you to life again." Al-Hajj 22:66. Thus, the death that is affirmed is the departure of the soul from the body, and the death that is negated is the total extinction of life from both body and soul. This is just like sleep, which is the brother of death. It is called a kind of death, and yet life remains within it. God said, "It is God who takes the souls at the time of their death, and those that did not die in their sleep. Then he retains those for whom he has decreed death, and releases the others for a term appointed." Al-Zumar 39:42. And the prophet, when he would awaken from sleep, would say, "Praise be to God who gave us life after causing us to die, and to him is the return." And in another narration, "Praise be to God who returned to me my soul, gave health to my body, and permitted me to remember him, and who has favoured me over many of his creation with great favour." And when he would retire to his bed, he would say, "O God, you created my soul, and to you belongs its taking. To you belongs its death and its life. If you take it, then have mercy on it. If you send it back, then protect it as you protect your righteous servants." And he would say, "In your name, O God, I die and I live." Chapter Among the maladies of the heart is envy, hasad. As some have defined it, it is a pain born of the awareness of the well-being of those who are wealthy. And thus it is inconceivable that a noble soul should be envious, for the noble one treads only the path of beauty. A group of people have said, "Envy is the desire for the disappearance of a blessing granted to the envied, even if the envier does not attain a like blessing." This is in contrast to gibta, aspiration, which is the wish to have a similar blessing without the desire for it to be removed from the one who possesses it. Yet the truth is that envy is aversion and hatred for the state of goodness seen in the one envied, and it is of two kinds. The first, to detest the blessing upon another in absolute terms. This is the blameworthy envy. If one harbours such detestation, he suffers and is pained by the existence of what he detests. Thus it becomes a disease within the heart. He finds pleasure in the cessation of the blessing, even if he does not gain any benefit from its loss, his only gain being the relief from the internal torment he bears. But this relief is attained only through direct action, akin to the patient whose pain is momentarily relieved by some remedy while the illness itself remains. For the enmity against the blessing of God upon his servant is indeed a sickness. That blessing may return to the envied in greater measure, or a similar blessing may be bestowed upon one like him. The envier has no particular aim, rather his soul loathes what God has granted to others of his kind. Thus, some said, envy is the desire for the removal of a blessing. For the one who detests the blessing upon another inevitably wishes for its cessation in his heart. The second type is to detest the superiority of another and to love that he be equal or superior to him. This too is envy, and this is what they have called aspiration, gibta. The Prophet, peace be upon him, himself named it envy in the well-known hadith narrated by Ibn Masud and Ibn Umar, may God be pleased with both, wherein he said, "There is no envy except in two: a man whom God has granted wisdom, and he judges thereby and teaches it, and a man whom God has granted wealth, and he spends it in the cause of truth," narrated by Ibn Mas'ud. And in the version of Ibn Umar, a man whom God has given the Qur'an, and he stands reciting it through the hours of the night and day, and a man whom God has given wealth, and he spends it in the cause of truth through the hours of night and day. And Al-Bukhari narrated from Abu Huraira, may God be pleased with him, with the wording, "There is no envy except in two: a man to whom God has given the Qur'an, and he recites it by night and by day, and another man hears him, and says, 'Would that I were given what he has been given so that I might do what he does.' And a man to whom God has given wealth, and he spends from it in the cause of truth. And another man says, 'Would that I were given what he has been given so that I might do what he does.'" This is the envy that the Prophet, peace be upon him, permitted in two cases. It is what others have called aspiration, gibta, the desire to be like another in goodness, but with an aversion to being surpassed by him. Now, if it be asked, why then is it called envy, when all he desires is that God bestow goodness upon him? The answer? The origin of this desire lies in his gaze upon God's favour upon another, and his dislike of being left behind. Were it not for the presence of that other, he would not have loved such a blessing. Hence, since the root of his desire lies in his dislike of another being favoured, it is envy, an aversion that gives rise to a desire. As for the one who wishes that God bless him, without any regard to the state of others, such a one harbours no envy whatsoever. And thus most people are tried with this second kind of envy, which may also be called rivalry. Two rivals compete in pursuit of a beloved aim. Each seeks to attain it, driven by the dislike of being outdone by the other. Just as two racers each abhor being outrun, so too in matters of virtue. Rivalry, however, is not entirely blameworthy. It is praiseworthy when sought in goodness. As the Blessed and Most High has said, "Verily the righteous shall be in bliss upon couches gazing around. You will recognize in their faces the radiance of delight. They will be given to drink of a sealed nectar whose seal is musk. And for this let those who would compete, compete." Surat Al-Mutaffifin 83, 22, 26. Thus he commanded that rivalry be for this eternal bliss, not for the fleeting pleasures of this world. And this accords with the saying of the Prophet, for he forbade envy except in one who has been granted knowledge and acts upon it and teaches it, or one who has been granted wealth and spends it. As for one who is granted knowledge but does not act upon it or teach it, or one who is granted wealth but does not spend it in obedience to God, he is not to be envied, nor should his condition be desired. For such a person is not upon any good that inspires longing, rather he is one exposed to punishment, and one who is entrusted with authority and fulfills it with knowledge and justice, delivering trusts to their rightful people and judging among men according to the Book and the Sunnah. His station is lofty indeed. Yet this is a great struggle, just as the warrior in the path of God is engaged in great struggle. People do not envy the one who is in great toil. Hence the Prophet did not mention him, though the one who fights in the way of God is greater in rank than the one who merely spends wealth. This is unlike the spender and the teacher, for these two in the usual course have no external enemy. But if they do happen to fight against an adversary, they are then greater in rank for both inward and outward struggle. Likewise, the Prophet did not mention the devotee in prayer, nor the one who fasts, nor the pilgrim. For these acts typically do not yield that public benefit by which people raise a person in esteem and status, as do teaching and spending. Envy, in its essence, arises from what others possess of prestige and leadership. A person is not ordinarily envied for his acts alone, even if he enjoys more food, drink, and marital pleasures than others, unlike those who teach or spend, for they are greatly envied. Thus, among the people of knowledge who have followers, there is envy beyond what is found among those who do not, and likewise among those who have followers due to their generosity, for one nourishes the hearts and the other nourishes the bodies, and all people are in need of that which brings them to wellness, be it of the soul or of the flesh. And so God Most High has struck two parables, one for this and one for that. God sets forth a parable, a slave owned by others who has no power over anything, and another to whom we have granted fair provision from us, and he spends from it secretly and openly. Are they equal? All praise is due to God, but most of them do not know. Surat Al-Nahl 1675. And God has set forth a parable of two men, one of them dumb, unable to do anything, a burden upon his master. Wherever he is sent he brings no good. Is he equal to the one who enjoins justice and is on a straight path? Surat Al-Nahl 1676. These two parables God the Most Sublime has struck for his sanctified self and for that which is worshipped besides him. For the idols are incapable of action or speech that benefits. Imagine a slave, owned and powerless, compared to one whom God has blessed with good provision and he spends from it secretly and openly. Can the powerless be likened to the one who is generous to creation both in private and in public? And he, exalted is he, is able to bestow grace upon his servants, and constantly does so. How then can he be likened to the powerless servant who cannot do anything, yet they associate others with him? And this parable is like that of the one whom God has given wealth, and he spends it by night and by day. And the second parable, imagine two men, one of them is mute, lacking reason, unable to speak, and incapable of any deed. Moreover, he is a burden upon his master. Wherever he is directed, he brings no benefit. He is of no use whatsoever, a burden upon his guardian. And the other, a man of knowledge and justice, who enjoins equity and acts upon it, he is upon a clear and straight path. And this is akin to the one to whom God has granted wisdom. He acts upon it and teaches it to others. This too is a parable that God Most High has set forth for his own self, for he is all-knowing, all-just, all-powerful. He commands justice and is ever established upon equity, upon a straight path. As the Exalted has said, God bears witness that there is no deity save him, and so do the angels, and those who are endowed with knowledge. He stands firm in justice. There is no deity save him, the Almighty, the All-Wise. Al-Imran 3:18, and as Hud said, verily my sustainer is upon a straight path. Hud 11:56. For this reason people used to revere the household of Al-Abbas. For Abdallah would teach the people, and his brother would feed them. So they were held in esteem for this. When Muawiyah saw the people asking Ibn Umar about the rites of pilgrimage, and how he was issuing fatwas to them, he said, "By God, this is true nobility," or words to that effect. The rivalry between Al-Siddiq and Umar ibn al-Khattab, may God be pleased with him, once competed with Abu Bakr al-Siddiq, may God be pleased with him, in giving charity. As is authentically reported from Umar ibn al-Khattab, may God be pleased with him, he said, "The Messenger of God commanded us to give in charity, and I happened to possess wealth at that time. I thought to myself, today I shall surpass Abu Bakr, if ever I am to surpass him at all. So I brought half of my wealth. The Messenger of God asked me, 'What have you left for your family?' I replied, 'The like of it.' Then Abu Bakr came with all that he had. The Messenger of God asked him, 'What have you left for your family?' He replied, 'I have left God and his Messenger for them.' I said, 'By God, I shall never compete with you again in anything.' So what Umar did was a form of permissible rivalry and commendable aspiration. Yet the state of Al-Siddiq, may God be pleased with him, was superior, for he was entirely free from rivalry, not even glancing at the states of others. And likewise, in the hadith of the Miraj, the night journey, Musa felt a sense of rivalry and aspiration toward the Prophet, peace be upon him, to the point that he wept when the Prophet surpassed him. He was asked, 'What makes you weep?' He replied, I weep because a youth was sent after me, and yet more of his community will enter paradise than of mine. This was reported in the two Sahihs, and in one of the non-Sahih narrations it is reported, we passed by a man who was raising his voice, saying, You have honoured him and preferred him. So we ascended to him and greeted him. He returned the greeting and said, Who is with you, O Jibril? He said, This is Ahmad. He replied, Welcome to the unlettered prophet, who conveyed the message of his sustainer and sincerely advised his community. Then we continued on, and I asked, Who was that, O Jibril? He said, That was Musa ibn Imran. I asked, And whom was he disputing with? He said, He was disputing with his sustainer concerning you. I said, And he raised his voice to his sustainer. He said, Indeed, God, mighty and exalted, is well aware of his truthfulness. And Umar, may God be pleased with him, bore a resemblance to Musa, while our prophet's, peace be upon him, state was superior to that of Musa, for he harboured none of that. Among the companions were those like Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah and others, who were free of all such things. They were of higher rank than those who held some measure of rivalry or aspiration, even though such rivalry may be lawful. For this reason, Abu Ubaidah, may God be pleased with him, deserved the title, the trustee of this Ummah. For the one entrusted with a matter, if he bears no desire or competition over that which he is entrusted with, he is more fit for trust than one whose heart inclines toward rivalry. Thus one is entrusted with women and children if he is a eunuch, and one is entrusted with minor positions if it is known that he does not contend for greater ones. One is entrusted with wealth if he is known to have no interest in taking from it. But if one is entrusted who harbours betrayal in his soul, he is like a wolf entrusted with sheep. He cannot fulfil the trust, for his soul craves what has been placed in his care. In the hadith recorded by Imam Ahmad in his Musnad from Anas, may God be pleased with him, he said, One day we were sitting with the messenger of God, and he said, Now there shall appear before you a man from the people of paradise. And lo, a man from the Ansar appeared, his beard dripping with the water of ablution, his sandals dangling in his left hand. He gave salam. The next day the Prophet said the same, and again the same man appeared in the same condition. And on the third day the Prophet repeated his words, and again the same man appeared. When the Prophet departed, Abdallah ibn Amr ibn al-As followed the man and said, I had a dispute with my father and swore that I would not enter his house for 3 nights. If you would allow me to stay with you until they pass, I would be grateful. The man said, Yes. Anas said, Abd Allah related that he stayed with him for 3 nights and did not see him rise at night for prayer. But whenever he stirred in bed, he would remember God and magnify him until he rose for Fajr prayer. Abd Allah said, I never heard him say anything but good. So when the 3 nights had passed and I was about to belittle his actions, I said, O Abd Allah, there was no anger or estrangement between me and my father, but I heard the messenger of God say 3 times, A man from the people of paradise shall now appear before you, and you were the one who appeared each time. So I wished to stay with you to observe your deeds and follow them, but I did not see you do much. So what deed has raised you to such a rank? He replied, It is only what you saw, except that I bear in my heart no resentment or envy toward any Muslim for any good that God has granted him. Abdallah said, This is what has raised you, and this is what we cannot endure. So the words of Abd Allah ibn Amr, This is what has raised you, and this is what we cannot endure, is a testimony to the man's purity and his heart's freedom from all forms of envy. And thus did God praise the Ansar, saying, And they find no desire in their hearts for what was given to them, and they prefer others over themselves, even though poverty be their lot. Al-Hashr 59:9. That is, for what was granted to their brethren, the Muhajirun. The exegetes said, They find no desire, meaning no envy or resentment, for what the Muhajirun received. Some said this refers to the spoils, fay, and others said it refers to their virtue and precedence. So they felt no resentment, neither regarding wealth nor status, and envy most often arises on account of both. There was also a pious rivalry between the Aws and the Khazraj in matters of religion. Whenever one group did something that drew them nearer to God and his messenger, the other wished to do the same. This was a rivalry in seeking nearness to God, as he said, "And for this let those who would compete, compete." Al-Mutaffifin 83:26. As for the envy that is wholly blameworthy, God said regarding the Jews, "Many among the people of the book wish that they could turn you back into unbelievers after you have believed, out of envy from their own souls, even after the truth has become clear to them." Al-Baqarah 2:109. They wish, meaning they desire that you return to disbelief out of envy. Thus, envy was what compelled them to such a wish, even after the truth had been made manifest to them. For when they saw that you had received such bounty, indeed what they themselves had not, they envied you. Likewise, in another verse, "Or do they envy people for what God has given them of his bounty? But we had already given the family of Abraham the scripture and wisdom, and we bestowed upon them a mighty dominion. So among them are those who believe in it, and among them are those who turn away from it, and hell suffices as a blazing fire." Al-Nisa 4:54-55. And he said, "Say, I seek refuge in the sustainer of daybreak, from the evil of what he has created, and from the evil of darkness when it settles, and from the evil of those who blow upon knots, and from the evil of an envier when he envies." Al-Falaq 113:1-5. A group among the exegetes have mentioned that this verse was revealed due to the envy harboured by the Jews for the Prophet, so much so that they resorted to sorcery against him. It was Labid ibn al-Assam, a Jew, who cast this spell. Thus the one who envies and loathes the blessings bestowed by God upon another is a tyrant and a transgressor. The one who despises another's elevation and yearns to be his equal is forbidden from such sentiment, unless it draws him nearer to God. Should he long to be granted, like the other, that which brings him closer to the divine, then there is no blame upon him. Yet, if his heart turns away from such desires altogether, not even casting a glance upon what others possess, that is even more virtuous. Now, if this envy manifests into action, its bearer is then unjust and transgressive, deserving of punishment, unless he repents. As for the one envied, he is wronged and commanded to be patient and to remain conscious of God. Thus he bears the harm of the envier with patience, pardons, and overlooks, just as the Almighty has said, "Many among the people of the book long to turn you back into unbelievers after you have attained to faith, out of envy in their hearts, even after the truth has become clear to them. Yet pardon and overlook until God brings forth his command." Joseph too was afflicted by the envy of his brothers, as they said, "Indeed, Joseph and his brother are more beloved to our father than we are, and we are a strong group. Indeed, our father is in clear error." And so they envied both brothers due to their father's favour. Hence Jacob said to Joseph, "O my son, do not relate your vision to your brothers, lest they devise a plan against you. Indeed, Satan is a manifest enemy to man." They wronged him thereafter, conspiring to kill him, casting him into a well, and then selling him as a slave to those who took him to a land of disbelief. There he became the possession of a people who worshipped other than God. Joseph was afflicted, even after this injustice, by a woman who called him towards sin, who sought to seduce him, and enlisted others to aid her in her pursuit. Yet he sought refuge in God and chose prison over sin. He preferred worldly suffering over the wrath of the Almighty. He was thus wronged by one who loved him for her desire and corrupt purpose. Her love was rooted in the whims of her soul. Its healing and its ruin lay in whether he yielded to her or opposed her. As for those who hated him, they did so with enmity that led them to cast him in a pit, enslave him, and strip him of his freedom against his will. She, on the other hand, drove him to choose imprisonment willingly. Thus her trial upon him was greater. His patience in this matter was voluntary, infused with piety. Unlike his patience toward his brother's wrongs, which was more akin to enduring calamities, those which if one does not face with the patience of the noble, he endures like cattle. The second kind of patience is the nobler of the two. Hence, God Most High said, "Indeed, whoever is mindful of God and patient, then surely God does not let the reward of the doers of good go to waste. Likewise, when a believer is harmed on account of his faith and is called to disbelief, sin, or transgression, yet he refuses and thus is harmed or punished, then he chooses suffering for the sake of his religion, whether that be imprisonment or exile, just as happened to the early emigrants. They chose to abandon their homeland rather than abandon their faith. They were tormented and harmed. The Prophet himself was subjected to various forms of harm, yet he bore them with voluntary patience, for he was harmed that he might abandon what he chose to do freely. This kind of endurance is greater than that of Joseph, for Joseph was called to commit a sin and punished with imprisonment for refusing. But the Prophet and his companions were invited to disbelief, and if they refused, they were threatened with death and worse. The least of these punishments was imprisonment. The polytheists imprisoned him and the Banu Hashim in the valley for a time, and when Abu Talib passed away, their persecution intensified. When the Ansar pledged allegiance to him and news of it reached the Quraysh, they sought to prevent his departure, detaining him and his companions. No one could migrate except in secret, save for Umar ibn al-Khattab and those like him. Thus, they were compelled to leave their homes. Even then, those who tried to prevent them were hindered and imprisoned. Hence, the trials faced by the believers were chosen by them in obedience to God and his messenger, not like random afflictions that come without choice, like Joseph's imprisonment or his separation from his father. This voluntary suffering is the nobler of the two kinds, and its bearers are of higher rank, even though those afflicted with involuntary trials are also rewarded for their patience and their sins are expiated thereby. But the one who is harmed through choice in obedience to God is rewarded not only for enduring the suffering, but also for the righteous deed inherent in it. God Most High said, "That is because they neither suffer thirst, nor fatigue, nor hunger in the cause of God, nor take any step that enrages the disbelievers, nor inflict any injury upon an enemy, but it is recorded for them as a righteous deed. Surely God does not let the reward of the doers of good go to waste." This differs from afflictions that befall a person without his will, like illness, or the death of a loved one, or robbers seizing his wealth. For such trials, one is rewarded for bearing them with patience, not for the affliction itself. The sins are wiped away by these trials, for reward comes from voluntary deeds and what results from them. Thus, those who are harmed for their faith and obedience to God and his messenger, who suffer as a result anxiety, illness, imprisonment, exile, loss of wealth and family, or who are beaten, insulted, or stripped of status and wealth, are walking the path of the prophets and their followers, like the earliest emigrants. These are rewarded for the harm they endure, and for them such harm is recorded as righteous deeds. Just as the warrior is rewarded for his hunger, thirst, fatigue, and rage against the disbelievers, even though such outcomes are not actions in themselves. They are, however, caused by his voluntary deeds and are termed resultant effects. People have differed as to whether such outcomes are to be attributed to the one who performed the cause, or to God alone, or to no one at all. The correct view is that they are jointly attributed to the one who caused them and to all contributing factors. Hence, a righteous deed is written for him because of them. And the point here is that envy is a disease of the soul, one that is widespread and from which only few are saved. It is said, "Nobody is free of envy, but the ignoble reveals it, while the noble conceals it." It was said to Al-Hasan al-Basri, "Can a believer envy?" He replied, "Have you forgotten the brothers of Joseph? May your mother lose you. But let him confine it within his breast, for it shall not harm him so long as it neither finds voice in his words nor strength in his limbs. Whosoever finds envy in his soul must combat it with piety and patience. He should despise it within himself. Many of those who possess faith do not transgress against the envied, nor do they aid those who wrong him. Yet they also fail to fulfill their duty toward him. If someone slanders him, they do not rebuke it. If someone praises him, they remain silent. Such people are blameworthy for neglecting what is required of them. They are remiss, though not transgressors. Their recompense is that their own rights are diminished. They too will not be supported nor granted justice, just as they failed to support the one who was envied. But as for those who transgress by word or deed, they shall be punished. And whoever fears God and remains patient, not joining the ranks of the wrongdoers, God shall benefit him through his piety, just as occurred with Zainab bint Jahsh. May God be pleased with her. She was the one who vied with Aisha among the wives of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And the envy among women for one another is widespread, especially among co-wives. For a woman is jealous over her husband due to her share in him, for through sharing, part of her share is lost. Likewise, envy often occurs among those who share in leadership or wealth, when one gains a portion and another is deprived. It arises among peers, when one resents being surpassed, just like the envy of Joseph's brothers, or the envy of the two sons of Adam, when one envied the other because God accepted his offering and not the offering of the envious. He envied him for the favour God bestowed upon him in faith and piety, and slew him on account of it. And such was the envy of the Jews toward the Muslims, and for this reason it was said, the first sins by which God was disobeyed were three: greed, arrogance and envy. Greed came from Adam, arrogance from Iblis, envy from Qabil, who slew his brother Habil. And in the tradition it is said, three things no one is free from: envy, suspicion and pessimism, tiara. Yet I shall tell you how to be free of their harm. If you envy, do not hate. If you suspect, do not act upon it. And if you feel pessimistic, continue on your path. This hadith was narrated by Ibn Abi al-Dunya from Abu Hurairah. And in the Sunan the Prophet said, the disease of the nations before you has crept into your midst, envy and hatred, and it is the shaver. I do not say it shaves the hair, but rather it shaves away the religion. Thus he named it a disease, just as he described miserliness as a disease in his saying, and what disease is more ruinous than miserliness? Therefore it becomes clear that this is a spiritual ailment. And in another hadith it is said, I seek refuge in you from wicked morals, desires and diseases. And so he mentioned diseases alongside morals and desires. For character, kuluk, is that which becomes a habitual disposition of the soul. The Almighty has said, and truly you are of a tremendous character. Ibn Abbas, Ibn Uyayna, and Ahmad ibn Hanbal, may God be pleased with them, all said, it means upon a tremendous religion, and in another narration from Ibn Abbas, upon the religion of Islam, and Aisha, may God be pleased with her, said, his character was the Quran. And Al-Hasan al-Basri said, the manners taught by the Quran are the tremendous character. As for desire, hawa, that may be a fleeting impulse, but the disease is the ailment of the heart, its pain and its corruption. And in the aforementioned hadith, envy was paired with hatred, for the envier begins by detesting the grace of God upon another, and then that detestation grows into hatred of the one who has been favoured. For to hate the necessary, the grace, entails hatred of its bearer, the person, since the blessing cannot be removed unless the blessed is harmed or destroyed. Thus he comes to hate him and to wish for his ruin. Envy leads inevitably to injustice, as God has informed us about those who came before us. They did not differ until after knowledge had come to them, out of transgression among themselves. So their discord was not due to ignorance of the truth, they knew it well, but some of them transgressed against others, just as the envier transgresses against the envied. And in Al-Sahihain, from Anas ibn Malik, may God be pleased with him, that the Prophet said, do not envy one another, do not hate one another, do not turn away from one another, do not sever your ties. Rather, be servants of God, brothers to one another. It is not lawful for a Muslim to shun his brother for more than 3 nights. They meet, and this one turns away, and that one turns away. But the better of the two is the one who begins with salam. And in another hadith, agreed upon by the scholars and narrated also by Anas, by him in whose hand is my soul, none of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. And the Almighty has said, and indeed among you are those who would lag behind. Then if disaster befalls you, he says, God has favoured me that I was not present with them. But if bounty from God comes to you, he says, as if there were no bond of love between you and him. Oh, would that I had been with them! I would have achieved a great success. Such laggards do not love for their believing brothers what they love for themselves. If calamity befalls the believers, they rejoice in having been spared. And if a blessing comes to them, they do not share in their joy, but rather wish that they had received a share of it instead. They rejoice only in worldly gain that reaches them, or in the departure of worldly harm from themselves. Such people do not truly love God, his messenger, or the hereafter. For if they did, they would love their brothers and rejoice in the blessings that reach them from God's bounty, and they would grieve when calamity touches them. Whoever is not gladdened by what brings joy to the believers and not grieved by what grieves them is not of them. And in Al-Sahihain from Amir, who said, I heard Al-Nu'man ibn Bashir delivering a sermon and saying, I heard the messenger of God say, the likeness of the believers in their love, mercy and compassion for one another is that of a single body. If one part of it complains, the rest of the body responds with sleeplessness and fever. And in Al-Sahihain from Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, may God be pleased with him, who said, the messenger of God said, the believer to another believer is like a building. Each part strengthens the other. Then he interlocked his fingers together. Miserliness is a disease, and so is stinginess. Yet envy is worse than both, as in the hadith narrated by Abu Dawood from the Prophet. Envy consumes good deeds just as fire consumes wood, and charity extinguishes sin just as water extinguishes fire. This is because the miser only withholds from himself, whereas the envier resents the blessings of God upon his servants. A man may give generously to those who help him realize his goals while envying his peers, and another may be stingy without envying others. But the root of both is covetousness, shuh. God Most High has said, and whoever is protected from the covetousness of his soul, it is they who are the successful. And in Al-Sahihain the Prophet said, beware of covetousness, for it destroyed those before you. It led them to miserliness, and they became miserly. It led them to injustice, and they committed injustice. It led them to severing ties, and they severed them. Abd al-Rahman ibn Auf used to frequently supplicate during Tawaf, saying, O God, protect me from the covetousness of my soul. A man once asked him, why do you repeat this so often? He replied, if I am protected from the covetousness of my soul, I shall be protected from miserliness, injustice, and the severance of ties. And envy leads to injustice. Section on the disease of lust and passion. Stinginess and envy are both diseases that cause the soul to detest what benefits it, and even to love what harms it. Thus, envy is often paired with malice and anger. As for the disease of lust and ishq, obsessive love, it is the soul's love for that which harms it, and at times its dislike for what would heal it. Ishq is a disease of the soul. If its effects reach the body, it becomes a physical ailment, sometimes akin to afflictions of the brain, such as melancholia, maliculia. Hence, it has been said, it is an obsessive illness resembling melancholia. Or it may appear as bodily ailments, such as weakness, emaciation, and the like. But what is intended here is the disease of the heart, the root of the soul's love for what harms it. Like the body of a sick man who craves what worsens his illness, if he is denied it, he suffers, and if it is given to him, his ailment grows worse. Likewise, the one obsessed with love is harmed by union with the beloved, by seeing, touching, or hearing them. Even thinking of them or imagining them causes him harm. And yet he desires it. If he is denied what he craves, he suffers. If granted it, his disease intensifies and his agony increases. And in the hadith, verily God shields his believing servant from the world, just as one of you shields his sick companion from food and drink. And in the supplication of Moses, reported by Wahb and narrated by Imam Ahmad in his Kitab al-Zuhd, God Almighty says, verily I drive my allies away from the pleasures and comforts of the world, just as the compassionate shepherd drives his flock from the pastures of perdition. And I keep them from its ease and delights, just as the caring shepherd keeps his flock from dangerous resting places, not out of disdain for them, but so that they may complete their share of my honour, untouched by worldly decay, unextinguished by desire. Indeed, the healing of the patient lies in the removal of his disease, indeed in the uprooting of that blameworthy love from his heart. People differ regarding ishq. Some say it belongs to the realm of will and desire, and this is the more common view. Others say it belongs to the realm of perception and imagination, a corruption of the mind's image of the beloved, where one sees them as other than they truly are. These say, for this reason God is never described as having ishq, nor is he said to fall in love, for he is exalted beyond such imperfection, nor is it praiseworthy for one to imagine God falsely. As for the former view, some of its adherents have said, God may be described with ishq, for it is perfect love, and God loves and is loved. It is narrated from Abd al-Wahid ibn Zayd, my servant continues to draw near to me until he falls in love with me, and I with him. This is a saying attributed to some of the Sufis, but the majority of scholars do not use this term concerning God. For ishq denotes an excessive love that exceeds the bounds of what is proper, yet God's love knows no limits, nor does it end at a point beyond which it becomes blameworthy. Thus, they say, ishq is blameworthy in all cases. It is not praised in relation to the Creator nor the creation, for it is a love that exceeds the praiseworthy bounds. And verily, the term ishq, passionate love, is by common usage employed to refer to the love of a man for a woman or for a boy. It is not used for love such as one's love for family, wealth, prestige, or for the prophets and the righteous. Rather, it is often associated with forbidden acts, whether it be love for a strange woman or a boy, accompanied by forbidden glances, unlawful touches, and other prohibited deeds. As for a man's love for his wife or concubine, if such love leads him into injustice, so that he does for her what is impermissible, and forsakes what is obligatory, as often happens, then he may wrong his son from his earlier wife out of love for the new one. He might yield to her blameworthy demands, to his own detriment in both his religion and worldly life, such as granting her inheritance she does not deserve, or bestowing upon her kin authority and wealth beyond the limits set by God, or being extravagant in spending upon her, or enabling her to engage in forbidden acts that harm his faith and his livelihood. And this is concerning ishq for one whom it is lawful to be intimate with. So how much worse his passionate love for a stranger or for boys among creation? Indeed, therein lies corruption that none can enumerate save the sustainer of the servants. It is among the diseases that ruin one's religion and reputation, and may come to ruin his mind and then his body. God, exalted is he, said, so do not be soft in speech, lest he in whose heart is a disease should covet. Al-Ahzab 33:32. And he whose heart harbours the disease of lust and longing for beauty, when the desired one responds with softness, such a one becomes filled with desire, and desire strengthens the will and intensifies the ailment. Contrary to this is despair of the desired one, for despair removes expectation, thus weakening the will and lessening the love. For man does not seek what he has despaired of. In such a case there is no action along with the will, only whispers of the soul, unless coupled with speech or glance or the like, in which case he is sinful thereby. But if one is afflicted with ishq and remains chaste, patient and God-fearing, then he shall be rewarded for his piety. It has been narrated in the tradition, whoever falls in love, remains chaste, conceals it and is patient, then dies, he dies a martyr. It is well known from the narration of Yahya al-Qattan, from Mujahid, from Ibn Abbas, though there is scholarly scrutiny over it, and it is not used as a binding proof. Yet it is known by the evidences of the Sharia that if one refrains from the forbidden, whether in gaze, speech or deed, and conceals such love, not expressing it in unlawful speech, be it complaint to a creature, or exposing indecency, or seeking the beloved in any way, and is patient in obedience to God and in abstaining from his disobedience, bearing the pain of ishq in his heart as the afflicted bears the pain of calamity, then such a one is among those who are mindful of God and patient. God said, indeed, he who fears God and is patient, God does not let the reward of those who excel go to waste. Yusuf 12:90. So too are the diseases of envy and other maladies of the soul. When the soul desires what God abhors, and one restrains it out of awe for God, he is among those who fall under his saying, "But as for him who feared the standing of his sustainer, and restrained the soul from its lusts, then surely paradise shall be his abode." An-Nazi'at 79:40-41. For when the soul loves a thing, it seeks to attain it by whatever means are within reach, even pursuing many matters that serve only that end. Thus he who loves with blameworthy love, or hates with blameworthy hate, and acts upon that, is sinful. For instance, he may hate someone out of envy, and then harm those related to him, either by denying them their rights or by transgressing against them. Or he may love someone for his own desire, and then commit for his sake what is forbidden, or even what is commanded by God, but does it for his own want and not for God. These are many ailments of the soul. A person may hate something, and because of that hatred he comes to hate many other matters merely due to imagination and illusion. Likewise, he may love something, and due to that love comes to love many other things purely out of illusion and fantasy. As one of their poets said, "I loved the blacks for her love's sake, so much that I loved even black dogs for her love." He loved a black woman, and thus loved all that was black, even among dogs. This is but a sickness in the heart, in its perception and will. So we ask God Most High to heal our hearts from every ailment, and we seek refuge in him from the vices of character, desires and diseases. The heart was created for the love of God Most High. This is the innate nature, fitra, upon which God has fashioned his servants. As the prophet said, every child is born upon the fitra, but his parents make him a Jew, Christian or Magian, just as an animal gives birth to a whole-bodied offspring. Do you perceive any among them as mutilated? Then Abu Huraira, may God be pleased with him, would say, "Recite, if you will, the fitra of God upon which he has created mankind. There is no altering God's creation." Rum 30:30. So God, glorified be he, has fashioned his servants upon the love of him and the worship of him alone. If the fitra is left uncorrupted, the heart will know God, love him, and worship him alone. But it becomes corrupted by disease, like the parents making the child a Jew, Christian or Magian, thus altering the innate nature upon which he was created, though all is by God's decree and his will. Just as the body may be altered by disfigurement, so too the heart. Yet the fitra may return, if God facilitates for it one who strives to restore it. The messengers, peace be upon them, were sent to affirm and perfect the fitra, not to alter or distort it. And when the heart loves God alone and sincerely devotes the religion to him, it is not afflicted with the love of others, let alone the trial of ishq. Wherever ishq occurs, it is due to a deficiency in loving God alone. Thus, when Joseph Yusuf, peace be upon him, loved God and was sincere in his faith, he was not afflicted with such a trial. Rather, God said, "Thus did we turn away from him evil and indecency. Truly, he was among our sincere servants." Yusuf 12:24. Whereas the wife of the Aziz was among the polytheists, as were her people, hence she was tried with ishq. No one is afflicted with ishq except due to a deficiency in his devotion to divine oneness and in his faith. For a heart that turns constantly to God and fears him is protected by two forces repelling ishq. One is its turning to God and loving him, for such love is more delightful and fulfilling than anything else. When the heart is filled with God's love, there remains no room for the love of any created being that may rival him. The second is the fear of God, which stands in opposition to ishq and repels it. Whoever loves something, whether by ishq or any other form of love, his love may be displaced by a greater love that competes with it. Likewise, he may abandon that love out of fear of a harm more odious to him than the loss of that love. Thus, if God is more beloved to the servant than anything else, and more feared than all else, then ishq and its contention cannot take hold, except in moments of heedlessness or when his love and fear of God are weakened by neglecting obligations or committing prohibitions. For faith increases with obedience and decreases with sin. The more one obeys God out of love and awe, the stronger his love and fear grow, and the more his heart is cleansed of love for any other, and fear of any other. Likewise, our bodily diseases, health is preserved by its like, and disease is repelled by its opposite. The heart's well-being is preserved by faith, and that is nurtured by what increases faith, beneficial knowledge and righteous action. These are its nourishment. As in the narration from Ibn Mas'ud, both raised and halted, indeed every host loves that his guests partake of his table, and truly the banquet of God is the Qur'an. The adib, host, is the one who invites, and this is God's hospitality to his servants. Whilst the last part of the night, the moments between the adhan and iqama in prostration and after the prayers, these are times when supplication is more likely to be answered. And let him add to that abundant seeking of forgiveness. For indeed, whosoever seeks forgiveness of God and then repents to him, God shall grant him a goodly life for a term appointed. Let him adopt a regular portion of adhkar throughout the day and at bedtime, and let him persevere in the face of obstacles and distractions, for he will not long remain without God supporting him with a spirit from himself and inscribing faith upon his heart. Let him be diligent in perfecting the prescribed prayers, outwardly and inwardly, for they are the pillar of the faith. Let his constant utterance be, "There is no power nor strength save by God, for with it are burdens borne, terrors endured, and lofty ranks attained." Let him not grow weary of supplication and entreaty, for the servant is answered so long as he does not hasten and say, "I have supplicated and supplicated, but I have not been answered." And let him know that victory comes with patience and relief with distress, and that with hardship comes ease. No one attains the seal of goodness, whether prophet or anyone lesser, except through patience. All praise is due to God, sustainer of the worlds, and to him belongs all praise and favour for Islam and the Sunnah, praise that befits the majesty of his countenance and the greatness of his glory. And may God's blessings and peace be upon our Master Muhammad, his family, his companions, his wives, the mothers of the believers, and upon those who follow them in excellence until the day of judgment, and peace many times over.